Today we are talking about tyres. Now, while everybody else at work has this morbid obsession with having fun riding bikes, it falls upon me to garner race results. Small bit of context, I am an elite cross-country racer. Not that brilliant, I sort of just about scraped into the top 15 of UK rankings, so I'm happy with that for someone that has a job, but that means that I put a bit more obsession into the equipment I'm using to get some slightly better results, essentially, because I can only do so much as a naturally untalented human being. Tyres are really, really important because without tyres your bike wouldn't be touching the ground. There's different courses, there's different conditions that all influence my tyre choice. And really, if you've got the luxury to do so, I think it's absolutely worth having a few sets of tyres and switching them out. It's a little bit of a pain to do it all the time. For me, I've got 2 or 3 wheel sets that I'll take to a race with different tyres on so that I'm always prepared. And that way, like let's say it rains the night before, I know that it's all good because I can put my wet weather wheels in and then I'm not going to have a terrible time of it. So, might as well start with wet weather wheels. They're in the bike right now. These are the Maxxis Severe. So they're like the XE mud tyre. They're really, really good. I've used them a lot over the winter. I've done a little bit of cyclocross racing on my mountain bike with these tyres and they're fantastic. They come into their own if you've got, like, let's say a steep climb with virtually zero traction. They've got quite sharp knobs that dig into the ground and claw you up the hill. So they're really, really good for that. And then basically big knobs everywhere so you can lean it in on corners and not wipe out, that sort of thing. For a mud tyre, they're actually quite quick in a straight line anyway. So if you're choosing one all-round tyre, to be honest, I would probably go for this because actually the centre knobs are tightly spaced enough that yeah, on harder pack terrain, you're not going to lose an awful lot of speed. Like I've been out on the road and done sort of reasonable pace on these tyres and they're absolutely fine. They're a little bit narrower than the tyres you would typically use, basically just to get a bigger gap between the tyre and the frame to clear mud. They're still 2.25 inch, but in this day and age that's fairly narrow, so most of the other tyres I'll be using are 2.4 inch. But yeah, there we go, that is the Severe. It's a very dry day today and I'm not going to complain, but yeah, we can't really get any muddy shots of these tyres, so believe me when I say they're really good. So I'm going to, in a minute, ride down this hill and then away to my car where I've got some wheels and tyres that are a little bit better suited for the conditions we've got today. So as we get a bit drier, we can afford to lose a little bit of tread in favour of speed. I'll talk about tread in a sec, because first of all, I'm going to go up to wider tyres as things dry out, because you've got a bit more clearance, obviously, because there's no mud. Wider is just faster rolling. There's various reasons on that. You can find them on the internet. However, with a wider tyre, the tyre width in relation to the rim width is a bit, obviously, bigger. So I'm running a cush core in the rear with any wider tyre, basically, just to give it a bit more sidewall support. So if you are slamming the back end into corners, just so the tyre doesn't wander around. The tyres I use for kind of dryish, but still like a little bit damp ground, are the Icon and the Recon Race. So the Icon's kind of a really good all-round tyre. Recon Race, a little bit slicker in the middle than the Icon, but the shoulder knobs are a bit bigger, so anything with off-camber, that's really, really good. So while I've got the Recon Race fitted, I wanted to go back to the tyre to rim width ratio thing, because I fitted these to some 33mm internal width rims. Typically you're on like 30s now. If you make that rim a bit wider, you're supporting the tyre from a wider stance, so actually you've got a bit more sidewall support. So I predict, here you go, here's a little prediction, in the next few years that's what we'll see. We'll see wider rims to meet the wider tyres that we're all using. So Nino Shirt has been, looks like he's been using some prototype like 35s. The new Biker Head wheels, they're 33. These Halo downhill wheels are 33 as well, and they ride really well, but they're like 2 kilos for a wheel set, which is not for me. But there we go, you've got a bit more support basically. So when you like smash it into a corner like that one down there, the tyre isn't going to roll off the rim essentially. My favourite conditions are dry and dusty, which is probably why the Aspen is my favourite tyre. So as soon as it's not wet, this is the go-to tyre. So it's very fast rolling, but it's still got enough grip for when you're putting the power down or when you're going around corners, that sort of thing. It's 2.4 inches, which is nice and fast, so I am using it with a cush core in the rear just to give it a bit more support. Other than that, it's not that much of an exciting tyre, to be honest with you. It's just really good in the dry. So I'm going to use this opportunity to talk a bit about rubber compound and casing, because that's kind of an important consideration as well. All of the Maxxis tyres use max speed rubber now, all of their cross-country tyres. And that's a very hard rubber, but it's infused with silica, which is very grippy. So they perform really well in wet slip tests, but they still roll really well, essentially. In terms of casing, they're all exo, so there's a degree of puncture protection without getting too crazy and too slow. And they're all 120 TPI. However, they are now starting to roll out 170 threads per inch tyres in certain models, which takes me on to the Aspen ST, which is the slickest mountain bike tyre they make. I'll only spend a little while on this because it's such a specific tyre. I'll probably only use it twice this year, basically for bike park courses that are like hard pack enough that you don't need much tread, because as you can see, there's really not much there, which does mean they're really, really fast. They're also very light because they are 170 threads per inch, so the more threads you have of like cotton, that means there's less rubber. Rubber's heavier than cotton. So they're very light. They're about 120 grams lighter per tyre than the Aspen I was showing you previously. So for a bike park course, which is climbing and descending, they're really good for the climbs. And like I say, they're very fast rolling for the descents. They're also 2.25 inch. They come in 2.4. I've chosen the narrower tyre for that whole tyre to rim ratio thing, so that on G-outs, on takeoffs of jumps or in catch berms, there's a bit more support. I realise I haven't touched on air pressures for the whole video, so I better talk about that quickly. To be honest, for me, I think the more important thing is getting the tyre itself right. Pressures, I will always start at 15 psi front, 15.5 psi rear, and then go like a few psi either way based on conditions. So I think there's definitely something to be said for finding your sweet spot pressure and like using that as a starting point every ride, every race, and sort of going from there based on how dry or wet it is, basically. So there you have it. That is the insight into my mind for the last few months and what I've been losing sleep over. I think hopefully that shows that if you delve a bit deeper into tyre setup, you can probably find some gains, not just performance, but in ride feel, ride quality, that kind of thing. Hopefully it shows as well. You look at a cross-country tyre, or every cross-country tyre, and it's easy to say there's no tread, it must be terrible, but actually, yeah, you delve a little bit deeper and there's differences between them, and that applies to trail tyres, it applies to downhill tyres, literally anything. So yeah, I implore you to try a few different tyres, because you may well be missing out on something, and you may be able to have a much better ride. Where's the... what? Did he just jump off his bike and his bike carried on?